talking about these songs, you talk in the book about the influence, like of these first songs we're talking about, like around Post, of Raymond Carver, the writer, the American short story writer, Raymond Carver. How did you discover him, and what influence did he have on your writing around this time?
My cousin Alex McGregor, who also features in the book, lent me a copy of Raymond Carver. Book's called Will You Please Be Quiet, Please? Yeah. This is a pretty skinny little book with maybe a dozen to 15 stories. It's probably just when a book comes to you at the right time in your life, and it's just like the stories hit me really hard. And to me, they were the perfect stories for a songwriter, or for what I was sort of groping towards. I mean, short stories generally, I think, are a very similar form to songs. They're short, so unless you're, Bob Dylan writing a 25-verse songs, most. I aspired to write short songs, pop songs, and Carver he had a way of conveying a lot of information and feeling in few words. So you had to there was always a feeling in his stories that something was going on that was not explicit. He didn't explain things. There was also often a feeling that something was just about to happen. And the story might end and that thing hadn't happened yet, but that was probably going to be the big thing. So I thought he had some great lessons for a songwriter, lessons about economy of words and leaving gaps and all those kinds of things.
Jump back. I'm going to go right back to the beginning. When you were writing this book, is there, and Carver brought to mind, is there in the drawers Paul Kelly short stories, starts of novels that from the 90s? I mean, is there other writing there that you haven't brought out or that you tried?
Not much. I wrote sort of short stories and poems before I wrote songs.
Yes.
So like a lot of people, I started writing poetry when I was 15. Yeah. I think most 15-year-olds write some kind of poetry.
Yeah. Usually bad.
And it was not rhyming. It didn't rhyme poetry. It was sort of kind of Khalil Gibran type of poetry, you know. They're still around too, but I'm not going to make it easy to find them, that's for sure. So I kept going, and then I started reading. I sort of started reading books a lot after I left school, and with Herman Hesse and poetry like Arthur Rimbaud and Baudelaire, Henry Miller. And Baudelaire had written this short book called Paris Spleen. I mean, Baudelaire mainly wrote poetry, but he had a book called Paris Spleen, which was prose poems. That was prose, but they were sort of short and they were sort of atmospheric. And I sort of tried to write pieces along like that. So, And a friend of mine, John Kingsmill, who's also in the book, we talked and wrote a lot to each other and talked about books and talked about literature. And in 1975, we started up a magazine in Adelaide called Another One for Mary, and which is like a literary magazine. And that was just a way for us to just sort of get ourselves published. You know, start your own magazine. You can get yourself published. So I wrote for that. Wrote this stories for that. We must have done about 4 or 5 issues, I think, over a year and a half. And so I was writing a short form of prose, but I was never really writing anything long, or even thinking that a long book or something like a novel I was capable of. So I still don't I still can't see how I could write a novel. But I never thought I would write a big book either, so I'll just never say never.
But there's nothing like more recently, like, I can understand, songs, fascinate you, and you're a great writer, and it goes from, like the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s to the year 2000, and over the last 10 years, you've been happy with songwriting, that there's nothing else? Like this is...
Yeah, once I started writing songs, when I was 21...
there's a lot to write, isn't there? When you start writing songs, there's a lot of songs that you can write till you start to feel it's enough, really.
Yeah, it was sort of... I found that, I found that sort of took up all my writing energy, and it's not like sort of I was satisfied with writing songs. It was that I was dissatisfied with writing songs, so I kept wanting to write songs to get better at it. Yep. So that took up all my juice, I guess, trying to write songs. Yeah. And very occasionally I'd write a poem that wasn't a song, but there's probably just a handful. But I was writing letters to my friend John, and then later on back home to family and loved ones. And I was writing long letters, trying to describe what I was doing. Being on tour. I would write when I was on tour mainly. So a lot of it was trying to write about what it's like.
Where you were.
So trying to describe my work. To a lot of people, being in a band or being a recording artist, that seems a bit of a mystery. But it's a job like any other job, and so I was sort of trying to describe it, and I think I didn't. So I never was thinking of a book when I was writing those letters, but I know that they've helped. They've helped indirectly through just giving me kind of the muscles, like the muscles to write prose, but also some of the letters I wrote work as diaries. They were a way of remembering things. I have a terrible memory, so if I don't write things down, I forget them. So I find the stuff where every time I've written about, just telling what happened, what happened in Pittsburgh. I remember that trip to Pittsburgh. Whereas if I just on a tour where I didn't write stuff down, every city's just a blur.
I know that we're going to get you to read something and play something, but can I read something?
Sure.
Yeah. It's on Carver, and to me this is just such fantastic stuff, and it's about its reaction. You write about Carver, and you set out just over a paragraph here and a little bit more, and it seems to fit not everything that you've done up until now, but it just seems like a really good summary or a key to what you do. Paul's written about reading the Carver stories back in the early 80s. And Carver's stories in particular are a perfect model for a certain kind of songwriter. They're lean, clipped, mysterious, with a lot happening around the edges. This felt like what I was trying to do. I wanted to write modern love songs, sing all kinds of love, old love, young love, complicated love, happy love, sad love, carnal love, yearning love, hanging on love, hanging in love, out of control love, love gone wrong, love pretty right, love between friends, love among families, love of home, love of the unknown, love of clan, love of enemies, love of drinking, love of oblivion, love of pain. It seemed to me that any love story between a man and a woman, or a boy and a girl, always had more than two people involved. In real life, there were exes, rivals, children, stepchildren, siblings, parents, in-laws, friends. My songs began to get crowded. That's fantastic. Isn't that great? Look, this is a bit of a random question. You write through the book about music you like. You have a very broad taste, and it comes through in the book, which is great. You talk about hip hop, you talk about Bill Monroe, it can be pop, it can be new wave. And it's just a question that popped to my mind. Is there music you don't like? That just doesn't, you know...
Heavy metal. Yeah,
right, okay.
Heavy metal, probably.
Foreigner?
Oh, well, they wrote one of the greatest songs ever written, I Want to Know What Love Is, so...
Right, yeah.
Which I've did on one tour when we were touring with Rebecca Barnard.
Oh, right.
She did the high part and I did the low part. And
how'd it go down?
I'll never forget the look on the audiences. Some people loved it and some people just watched in horror. So, but Urgent, I like Urgent by Foreigner as well. So I wouldn't really call them, I guess that really hard heavy metal, death metal or speed metal. I don't think I have many records like that in my collection.
Right, okay. There's a lot of sex in your songs. I listening to them all and reading the lyrics, there's a lot of sex. And there's a lot more sex than Prince. And
well, that's a lot.
And
that's a lot.
And it's true. And you mentioned, you mentioned Henry Miller before. He's someone that writes and someone that you admired. A lot of sex in there, a lot of action, deception, women coming, women going. Do you think there's a lot of sex in your work? And are you comfortable? You're obviously comfortable with writing about the female body, male body.
Soul music. I think a lot of soul music and R&B music before that, wrote about sex in a great way, and that's just something that I guess I've always sort of thought was something to aspire to. I think it's really it's much easier to write songs about love gone wrong, or there's that sort of singer-songwritery kind of songs, which is thoughts and feelings and introspection and the failures of love and so on. And I thought, I've always felt it is much harder to write, songs about good love, and obviously good love is going to involve, good sex. So, I mean... so I just, that was always in my mind, is find a way to write about. I think it's really hard to write about those kind of things without being banal or smug or sort of boasting. A lot of now, I think modern R&B and hip hop can fall over into that sort of awful sort of smugness and boasting in writing about just. It's almost like watching the black entertainment channel in the States. Sometimes it's like watching soft porn, and all the songs are about sex. But I think they sort of tip over. They get a bit icky. It's like, well, we don't want to be there in the bedroom with you. Right. But I just So I've always thought trying to find a way to. It's just part of life. So it should be part of the song.
Right. Because there's a lot of aching, and there's, it really comes through on these songs, late at night, there's more details in it and more aching than the usual singer-songwriter. It's obviously something that you're just talking about, something that you've consciously tried to do.
Yeah.
Okay. It's great. Another thing I want to talk to you about is that comes up in the book when you're talking about tour diaries and travel, is America, and you've toured there a number of times, and there's a quote in the book, America is a dream and a nightmare, and I'm wondering, as you're touring and as a country itself, what's the dream and what's the nightmare about America for you?
It struck me the first time I went to America how it seemed to be a country that contained everything and its opposite. I think something to do with the way that the country was founded on, it was founded by religious pilgrims and then developed an attitude of sort of rugged individualism.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to have been a country that sort of had these splits in it right from the start. So it's, America has incredible riches, as we all know, and then and terrible poverty and just this great split.
Mm-hmm.
And with a lot of people there thinking that it's not a government's role to sort of to sort of try and equalise those in any way. America is a country that, for whatever reason, whether it was through sheer weight of numbers or its mix of immigration with the Jewish immigration starting in the late 19th century, and then the Irish and the African American slaves. It's just sort of incredibly potent forces on culture and music.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at, just thinking about it the other day, I was, thinking about so many of our great, films and TV series, and, you look at the credits and they're all Jewish, look at Mad Men or In Treatment or The West Wing, Aaron Sorkin, I mean, it's like they're just, it's everywhere, and the playfulness of Irish speech is sort of in American culture, and all the stuff that the slaves brought, and the whole the richness that developed out of having to develop a culture sort of under the eyes of the masters. So all that kind of secret play. I just think somehow it was a country that had a lot of big forces acting on it, and then such big numbers that it's thrown up this amazing music and culture, which the rest of the world is drawn to. So then sort of creates a feedback loop, and so America becomes the country that everyone wants to go to and wants to take their wares to.
Mm-hmm. At the end of when you're writing like this about America, in the book is a complete poem by Shelley, Ozymandias, which is about a great, fantastic, famous poem, and it's written by Shelley, and it's about a civilization that basically was once great and is found many years later in dust. It's the destruction of an empire that was supposed to be all-lasting, ever-conquering, and someone finds just a statue out in the desert. How does that relate to America? What are you doing there by putting that poem at the end of writing about America?
I don't know. That's I'm not one of those people that think America's in decline.
Right.
I mean, again, it's everything you can say about America. You can say the opposite. It's in decline and it's regenerating at the same time. So, so if I was saying something there, it was probably much more unconscious. Something you've picked up on.
Do you feel comfortable when you're there in America?
After a while, and
Right.
I always find it takes when you arrive. You've got to sort of adjust your energy levels. You just find it going through customs. It's like, okay, here we go. You sort of just have to ratchet up a kind of sort of way of being. It's just sort of maybe a bit more, having a little bit more confidence or something. I'm comfortable in the sense that it's very similar to us, and that people speak English, and also because we've been colonised. Was it the inventors who said America has colonised our subconscious? So that's the thing that I noticed at my very first trip to the States, that everything seemed incredibly familiar.
Right.
And everything was just as I expected, even more so. And you don't usually get that when you travel to strange places. So you know, you knew everywhere you went suggested a song or a movie or a story or a TV series. It was it felt deeply familiar. So, and that's continued. So I think America will always feel like that to me.
I don't want to hang on America too long, but there's a section of the book where you do, like, it's a tour, like a tour diary about, and there's, you know, satisfaction, but it's, you know, it's going from, you know, Philadelphia to, you know, Nashville, you know, like it's the tour, you know, on the road, and which reads like a tour diary, and then you, with all the stresses and all the stuff that goes with that, but then you do a family trip there, on a holiday, which feels completely different. It, you know, like that feels like you're enjoying the tour, but that trip, I remember reading, and, you know, you're staying in Motel 6s and you're going through Texas and stuff like that. Feels very warm and very enjoyable. Okay.
Yeah. So that's, I mean,
you know, like, that's what I'm
you
saying.
don't get to do the kind of things we did on that trip,
right?
On the family trip, you don't sort
right.
of. They're the things you never get to do on tour because you've always just got to be to the next place. So to be able to travel around the southwest of America, do this road trip, you know, it's sort of something. Again, it's like sort of something you dream of for a long time. I've been able to do that. So that was the first time I had the chance to have that freedom of roaming in America, not just getting there and being on tour. So
and it was enjoyable.
And you know, that was the chapter I'm writing about. I'm talking about it actually is, you know, amazing country, that driving out from LA through Nevada, Arizona, southern Utah, New Mexico, and then into Texas. It's quite stunning country, mythical, you know, really, you know. And again, you've seen it all. You've seen a lot of it in the westerns. So you see these mesas rising up out of the plains, and you expect John Wayne to sort of come around the corner.
It's landscape. It's not too many people. Right. At the end of the book, and we'll start with questions soon. Just at the end of the book, the very last chapter, you talk about, and the book ends on this, is connecting, you know, and you're talking to school kids, and it's about connections, and the book actually ends, you know, with this word connect, and in a way, I was just wondering is how important that is to you and what you mean there, and in a way, is the whole book about connections as well, about connecting times, places, music to one another, you know, to make, you know, the whole story of, you know, where you are up until now.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main themes of the book. I noticed that sort of kept coming up. I mean, when I first realised this is an autobiography, I had to be really careful of sort of I, me, or making that not tiresome. I mean, you're writing about yourself and the things you've done, the things you love. So, but I was conscious at the time of really trying to point people through the songs and through the prose to the things I love. So, and that's sort of what I try to do when I was doing those, talking to the students, because often because they were coming from a point of view of studying something at school, and there was the school sort of method was to sort of reduce. It's like they wanted to get the meaning of things, or be able to package up answers to songs so that get a nice good little morsel answer that they could then put in an exam. And I think songs are the complete opposite of that. Don't think songs can be explained. They can be exploded into a million pieces. And think so. There's so many little trails and that go into a song. Right. I think that's the same with most
influences and lines and things like that.
It's a kind of mosaic in the end of a bit of this and a bit of that. That's not something that's done consciously when you're writing it, but it's something you can become aware of after something's written, you sort of know, oh yeah, that melody's a bit like that other song that I really like, and that line comes from there, and sometimes a way of writing a song is to try and rewrite another song, or sort of like paraphrase it, or rewrite your own version of that song. I mean, I think the Chills leather jacket and my song Winter Coat are pretty much, they're exactly the same song, but they're just, I mean, they're totally different, but to me they're the same song. So I thought it was fun in the book to put things next to each other that seem similar.
Right.
And I notice it a lot in my own songs. They all come from somewhere.
I mean, reading the book, I mean, there's the songs, and what you write about them, sometimes I had to really dig to find the connection, and other times it's quite plain, which I thought was great. You know, it's sort of, it's not, here's the song, and here's a fairly obvious explanation of, you know, what's in that song. You know, it's some of the, like there's a great one, which really hit me when you write about, it's quite early in, probably, you know, like, 100 pages, 80 pages in, and you write about your father, and you write about your family. It's called Begat. And that felt like completely different mood to anything else, and it felt like, to me, like a short story. It felt the furthest away, where there was a lot of information and connections going on in the earlier ones, where that one felt ghostly and short story-like, and was really lovely, and you know, a whole different tone to what had gone on before.
Yeah, I wish I'd actually written probably more variation in styles in the book. That's something I was trying to do, and that chapter's sort of a bit of a sort of a one-off. It's kind of, I mean, it's a little bit of a Tim Winton pastiche, really.
Right.
So it's just sort of, again, like just sort of trying to write in a slightly more poetic style.
It works.
Yeah, I wish I'd done more of that.
Yeah, but at the same time, I didn't feel, it's strange, I didn't feel like, I didn't miss it later on, because I find all of them quite different the way you're going now. Before we start, I was on a train yesterday and going up to Newcastle. 4 questions just suddenly floated to my mind in 30 seconds, okay? And this before we'll take best Bob Dylan album.
Blonde on Blonde.
Favourite Bob Dylan album?
The first one.
Really? One where he's doing other people's material? All right, before Freewheeling. Right.
I think it's just what got the greatest sound, that record. I just love the way it's recorded. I love the sound of the guitar and the voice.
Could you do something like that?
I'm working towards it.
Okay. Have a bit of clarinet in there too. Third question, worst Beatles song?
Obla Dee, Obla Da.
Okay, pay that. And the fourth one, this came all in 30 seconds. Can you play any in excess number on guitar?
I can't.
Okay. Rightio. Thank you. We're now going to take some questions. If people have questions, they have to move to, there's microphones here. Yeah? Okay, we'll take a question from, the first question from downstairs to Paul.
Hi, Paul.
You can ask Robert some questions too, because I'm sure he's got some very interesting things to say, especially about the worst Beatles song. What's yours?
Glass Onion. Okay.
Paul, you probably know this quote, I can't remember it. Elvis Costello said something like, asking someone to explain a song is like asking someone to dance to a painting. And I like this line, and I wonder how you, as someone who's balked at explaining someone else's work like Goddard's and has kind of sidestepped explaining your own work, struggled or reconciled this idea of really attaching meaning to a lot of your songs for other people?
Well, that's what I was trying to do with the book, was use the song lyrics as a jumping off point to talk about other things. I never felt I had to try and explain the songs. Sometimes, as Robert mentioned, it's quite explicit in the prose, what I'm referring to in the song, or I might write how I wrote the song or what was happening at the time. But a lot of other times I just use the songs as a jumping off point to talk about other things. Like I said, point people through the songs to all the other, to wider worlds beyond it. And sometimes it was as tangential as a line, "Love never runs on time," having a line about bad coffee, and then using that as an excuse to write about trying to find a good coffee on tour. So I could be as indirect or as playful as I like with that. Certainly no interest in trying to explain the songs, but there are some stories attached to them in some way.
Okay, upstairs.
Hi, Paul. I see you're heading to Hanging Rock to play with Leonard Cohen. I was wondering if he is an influence on your music or has been in the past, and if there's any other American or Canadian artists of that era that really influenced your songwriting.
He was a big influence early on, and his first couple of records, and then I probably lost track of him for a while. But see, I had the privilege of playing with him 10 shows last year around Australia, and I have to say it was just one of the greatest concerts I've ever seen. I got to see him a number of times, and he was astonishing every time. The show was exactly the same. And normally it's the things that he said in the songs, between the songs, was pretty much the same night to night. He did the same songs in the same order. But at never at any point did it sound tired, stale, show busy, and cynical. It was like someone saying his prayers every night in front of a crowd. And that I just never witnessed such a feeling between an artist and a crowd. And I was just like, wow, you just watch this guy and learn how to be. He had gravity and great lightness at the same time, and I think that's just something to aspire to.
Okay, downstairs.
Hi. Paul, I was interested in what motivates you to do what you do. Some people do it for the attention. Some people, they're a bit political. They're trying to sort of get a message across. Other people do it for the money. What would you say your motivation was?
I think the attention. Yeah.
Okay, upstairs. You can't top that, yeah?
Thanks for this opportunity. Question for you both. Firstly, to you, PK, double-headed question, mate. Which way for the Crows, up or down? And secondly, mate, a few words or more on that song from your new first album, Post Luck, that song Luck.
I never try to predict sport. I just like to see what happens next, so I don't know what's going to happen with the Crows next year. And luck. What was the question about luck?
A few words on that song?
I wrote it as if I was trying to write a description of a dream. It was not an actual dream. I didn't have that dream, but I wanted the song to have the feeling of a dream.
Okay, downstairs.
Paul, To Your Door is an anthem we've all grown up with. We all know the characters. Have you ever thought of extending that song, or where do you reckon the characters are now, 15 years later?
So I didn't quite hear the question. What song and what characters?
To Her Door. The characters from that song,
yeah. Where
do you reckon they are 15 years later? And have you ever thought of extending that song?
Well, I have. I notice sometimes that when I wrote How to Make Gravy, I thought to myself, there's that guy again. So Love Never Runs on Time feels like that could be him. So I think he's still around. You know, sometimes you can't quite see if it's him or not, but you know, you just have to watch the way he walks.
Okay, next question. There's no one upstairs, so we're going to stay downstairs.
Hi, Paul. I want to ask a question about your experience working in Aboriginal communities. I've done the same for about 20 odd years as a filmmaker, working up north in Queensland, Cape York, Northern Territory. Can you talk a little bit about what you've brought away from what I feel is a privilege of being exposed to the communities I've had the pleasure of working with, what you've brought away from those experiences, and particularly for people in the city who may not have the opportunity to meet many Aboriginal people or people from Torres Strait, any thoughts on what they could do if they wanted to know more, learn more or do more to understand what the current state of affairs is in terms of Indigenous Australia?
I think travel and go places and ask questions. The greatest thing for me about travelling to different communities has been the friendships I've made. I don't really have any sort of general comments, but it's really just the friendships. Most Aboriginal people I know, my friends, have got a horror story somewhere in their family. I remember when John Howard said, what did he say about the Stolen Generations report? That was only 1 in 10, only affected 1 in 10. So, you know, why are we making such a big fuss? You know, there's only 1 in 10 people got taken away. 1 in 10. That's where we get the word decimated from.
Okay, next question.
I was listening to Words and Music on the way here, and the discussion earlier brought these lines to mind, that young people always talking about the young people as if I never did anything good before I got to 30. What did you do that you are proud of before 30?
Great question. Great question.
Didn't you already ask that? Well, that wasn't, you know, the songs. That wasn't me in the song. That was a you know, a cranky guy, a cranky old guy. I did some good things before I was 30. I started a family a long time before I was 30. That's been the best thing.
Okay, next question.
G'day. I'd really like to hear about the writing process that you went through. Pen and paper, I presume, or it could have been a computer?
Laptop. So just on a little MacBook, and sort of every day I cleared the decks so I could have time to write, because I'm a typical male. I can't do two things at once. So I didn't write any songs while I was writing the book. I just wrote prose. And I set myself a task of writing 500 words a day. I thought that was achievable. So, and sort of managed to sort of maintain that 2,500 to 3,000 words a week. And that was one of the most enjoyable parts about writing the book, was seeing the word count. I fell in love with word count. I would check it every day. And I mean, it appealed to the nerd in me, but it was also, it's a satisfaction you don't get as a songwriter. A songwriter, you can't I can't sit down in the morning and say, I'm going to write a song today, or I'm going to write half a song today, or I'm going to get started on a song. You try, and you don't know whether at the end of the day you'll have a song or not. But most of the time I sat down to write sentences and paragraphs, I got a few out. So I could feel the bricks gradually getting on top of each other. And that was sort of, and the act of writing something that was a long thing. I knew from the start, once I started and realised, okay, I've written 2 or 3 pages on Adelaide and these other songs that I've written a few more pages. I realised there's all these songs and I've got to get to Z. I knew it was going to be a long labour. But I loved just sort of getting there, sort of seeing the Z, what I had to get to, and just getting there. I just like seeing it build up.
Was there a feeling, I'm throwing a question here, when you finished, it was like, damn, or was it, great, I've done it, now I can do something else?
It certainly wasn't a feeling of damn, I want to do more. But it didn't feel final when I finished, because there was, with the book, as you know, you finish it several times because you think you've finished it, you've got a draft, and then there's the other part of working it again. So, but it did really, that first draft felt like a finish, and that's like, okay, I can now. This is something I can finish off. Right.
No, what I meant by damn was, damn, it's done. I wish there was more. I wish, like, it's over already, and I wish, I could come back tomorrow or for months and keep on doing this, writing, sitting at the laptop, doing 500 words a day. Or were you sort of happy, right, it's finished, and you felt, like, just happy?
I felt happy like that. I felt a certain completion. I didn't want to keep on going.
There's 1 or 2 more people there. Yeah, downstairs.
Yeah, hi Paul. My wife and I are really big fans of Mick Thomas and the song you did with him, Our Sunshine. And we saw Weddings did it last week, and they did Laughing Boy, and they hadn't done that for 21 years, which was fantastic.
Yeah, so I heard.
Yeah. Writing with other people or for other people, I mean, do you enjoy that, or is there a certain process or someone that you look forward to writing with, or?
It's a funny thing. I enjoy it. You kind of sometimes the ones when you're arranged to write with someone, even someone like Mick, and that was sort of we'd arranged to write together. You always approach it with a sort of slight feeling of dread, because you don't, even with a friend, because as soon as you arrange to write with someone, there's an expectation that there has to be a result. And as I was saying before, writing songs is not something that you can follow the steps and get a result. You just don't know whether you will get a result. And then, so there's a potential for kind of awkwardness or embarrassment that you've got together to try and write a song and it doesn't work. So there's always those kind of prearranged writings can be a little unnerving at first, but on balance, I do like writing with other people for the reason that they make you can, if it works, you can write something that neither of you could have written on your own, and as a musician, I'm pretty limited, basic on chords, and I don't know a lot of, jazz chords or Brazilian chords or the chords that I'd love to be able to just move around and play on the guitar. So, and I don't really write riffs or bass lines, or I'm not much good programming a drum machine, so I really like writing with people who have those skills. I always try to have in my band other writers, and that's sort of people who can, and I've written quite a few songs jamming with my bands where we sort of set up times to just jam, and we might start with a bass line, or Pete Luscombe on drums might come in with an idea with a drum beat or a little keyboard line. So I do set those kind of things up to try and write, and they're fun ones, because you're doing them as jams, and we get often, and they're jams often that just happen accidentally in the rehearsal room anyway when you're rehearsing something else. So you just make sure you've got a little cassette player, press play when that happens. Yeah, there's really no rules about it. I've done quite a few collaborations, and they're sort of different every time.
Okay, maybe just one or two more. Is there only one person there?
Hi. I was just wondering, like, with your songs, I play a bit of guitar, and I can always kind of find a few chords together, but I struggle kind of with putting the words and my idea of what I'm wanting to write a song about with the chords. I was wondering how you go about writing a song. Do you kind of think of the words first and then play some music around it, or do you, find some chords that you want to play and then put words around that?
It's for me. It's usually kind of music first. It's like I'd compare it to doodling. If you got a pencil and doodling on a piece of paper, or picking up the guitar. For me, it's mainly guitar. Sometimes piano, just fooling around with chords and singing stuff over the top. And usually that stuff over the top's kind of sound. It has a sound. It's kind of gibberish. Gibberish. How do you say that word? Gibberish. It's gibberish. It's kind of, I call it, it's sort of like, they sound like words, but they're not. A lot of the time I get songs by singing, I get a map of the song, a melody, and these sort of half words. And then the puzzle is trying to get real words to fit the sound of those words. That's the fun part and the hard part.
Okay. That's. Do you want to? Oh, okay. We'll do one more, and then Paul's going to play a song. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Upstairs. We're upstairs.
Are we on? Thank you. In a world of songwriters and musicians, you carry both with aplomb. As someone who's an iconic Australian for the craft of songwriting, and you speak a lot about the craft of writing songs as distinct from being a performing musician, I guess my question is, as a songwriter and a musician, if you had a choice, would you rather be adored by fans, revered by critics, or respected by fellow songwriters?
Number 3. Song?
Yeah. Someone said, I don't want to let you go. Look, one last thing I want to talk to you about, just briefly, is, and you don't talk about it much in in the book, and it's something that I really admire about you, your singing voice. And I find it always grabs me whenever you start a song, and it's a voice that is not, all the trills and tricks aren't there, but it's always it's don't take this the wrong way, but there's an everyman quality about it, but it's very, very distinctive at the same time. And I'm wondering how you rate your own voice. How do you feel about your singing voice? How do you feel about your singing?
I feel better about it now than I used to.
Right.
It took me a long time to get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been singing for 30 years, and I can feel it. I can feel it has improved. I can feel it. It's like any kind of athletic activity. You do something a lot, you get better at it. I can feel it getting. I feel like I'm still. It's not at a point where it's starting to go down a hill. It's probably just not that kind of voice. So, so it's still something I can work with and get better at. So I really enjoy singing. I love it.
You can hear it.
I think quite a few of my songs I probably sing better than others do, but I still, because of that sort of they're written they suit my voice or the phrasing. There are songs I write that I think of for other singers, and quite a few of my songs I think of them for another singer, for another voice, and I can feel the sort of the frustrations and the limitations in my voice when I try to sing those songs. So, yeah, overall, I'm okay with my voice now.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming along and listening. And Paul is going to be out in the foyer, and there'll be books on sale, and he'll be there. And so that's it for this evening. And I'd really like to thank Paul for the book, the beautiful songs, the singing, and thank you very much.
Thank you. And I would really like to thank Robert Forster, not just for tonight and the very enjoyable talk we've had, but for great inspiration to me for over many years. Thanks, Robert.
Okay. Thank you.